Alpha Bravo 9 Golf Kilo, AB9GK, over.
Roger, and what's the name there, sir?
Name is Gene, Golf Echo November Echo in Green Bay, Wisconsin, over.
Roger, Gene, what radio are you running, sir?
Kenwood TS-990.
Ah, well, sounds good. Tell me about your antenna system.
Jim, I'm running a step IR ground-mounted vertical, the large one. And for the counterpoise, I installed about 50 feet of galvanized fencing buried under the ground and bounded to a DX Engineering ground radio plate, and then I've got another 500 feet of wire above the ground. But the new house, new yard, all that's been simulated into the grass. Over.
Roger, nice signal, nice signal. Did you wanted to go to a vertical antenna for a long time, or what?
Used to live in Eau Claire, and we had about 3 acres. I got tired of wire antennas, trees we had there, so I've had the step IR since 2007, and it's performed flawless. KC9VKV with AB9GK, Jim, to you.
Roger. Now, in snow and ice, do you notice any anomalies with that vertical?
I did have to replace about the top 14 feet of it, but it split when I was taking it apart from the move from Eau Claire here, so I'm not surprised that when we had a 60-mile sustained wind for about 14 hours, it came apart, called Step IR, and they had replacement parts to me within about 3 weeks, so I was pleased with that. Back to you, Jim.
Roger. I was just thinking from the standpoint of if you get snow, does your SWR go up or move around at all?
No, and I monitor SWR all the time because this antenna is supposed to be resonant from 40 meters through 6, and in the testing I've done with separate SWR meters, it's pretty flat. I think the worst I got was 1.5 to 1, and that tends to be probably on this band, but it's pretty good for SWR performance. And again, applicable to your question, no, I have not seen any issues with snow or ice. I did ask Step IR when it was 20 below zero if there was any issues with it tuning up, the motor and that, and they didn't think it would be, and I didn't see it as well. Of course, that's an anomaly for weather, but it does get cold up here sometimes. Back to you, Jim.
Roger. Well, there are some anomalies that manufacturers tend to not consider weather-wise to certain degrees, and I'm not sure why. And just, by the way, I once put this K-band antenna together. It was a directional K-band antenna, and there had something about at one point you were supposed to push this button, and it was a covered button, but you were supposed to push it, and I was pushing it and getting absolutely nowhere. And so finally I called them. I said, "Hey man, what is happening here? I keep pushing this button." And they said, "Oh, well, we found out after we were manufactured that that cover on the button, when you get to 10 degrees, between 10 and 15 degrees, that material gets so hard that you can't push it in to actually get to the button." A little design flaw there, Roger.
Oh, Roger, that makes a lot of sense. The other thing that you learn is obviously from listening to other people and going on user groups, being aware that not everything you get is going to be pertinent or accurate, but sifting that out. Hey, by the way, you're 10 to 15 over on my signal strength meter today, Jim, so you're booming up here in the Green Bay. KC9VKV with AB9GK to you, Jim.
Roger, Gene. I just was looking at your signal strength. I run a really low RF input in the front end of these receivers, so I don't get any AGC suck-up between words on sideband. So trying to get the best signal possible. And so I'm looking at your signal on a VU meter, and I have your voice calibrated for 0 level. And then when you cease speaking, that which is left is noise. the residual noise level, and you were 10 dB above my residual noise level, Roger.
Well, that sounds good. And how does it sound to your headset if you're using a headset like I do?
No headset, but your audio is just perfect. I wouldn't change a thing there, Roger.
Yeah, I've had more people comment on that, unask what I've got my transmit equalizer set at, and I've got many choices, but I've got mine for it's conventional, but then I've got it set up. There's many things you can do for the frequency, and I'm using hard processing right now, so that seems to work well for my voice. No one's complained, and I appreciate your input. First time hearing you on the air that I can recall, and I do appreciate people like you that are out there giving advice and making this hobby, making us all a little better in our practices and in our performance. KC9VKF, AB9GK.
Roger, our call is Kilo Charlie 9 Victor, Kilo Victor. And I did notice the compression there, and what happens is that does suck up between words when you push that, you know, and it does fatten your signal, but I've found that you can get well, let's see. You can get sugar from other places that you don't necessarily have to get from some places that, well, what I'm trying to say is that if you run your ALC between mid-scale and 2/3, that is a very quick attack and release situation with the limiter. And so if you were to back off of your compression, which at any given time is really only good for about 3 or 4 dB. Now you can run a compressor at 20 dB, but you're listening to the cows in the South 40 between words, you know. And with a little more finesse, you can run a lighter compression and just push that ALC mid-scale to 2/3, and that will give you your 2.5 to 3 dB dynamic range without the suck up between the words. Yes, Roger. Now, what we normally recommend is, particularly like on the 7300s, but it's a very generic setup for the transmitter. We normally suggest only a 3 on the compressor. Very light on the compression. It does what it does at a 3, and then but it does not. So we're just talking a token amount on the compressor, and then move to your ALC, and with your mic gain, then adjust your ALC to where you're running a mid-scale to 2/3, with the sweet spot being halfway between a mid-scale to 2/3. Roger.
Roger that, Jim. I appreciate that information. We'll give it a try, and appreciate your information and Qso and what you offer out there. So may I offer this to you and yours. A very happy, healthy New Year, and may we meet again on the air. So from my house to yours, warm greetings. KC9VKV, AB9GK.
Roger, Gene. Oh, that audio is just beautiful. You should go to YouTube here in the next couple of days. If we usually can get ourselves to get it uploaded within 48 hours. But go to YouTube and do a call letter search for Kilo Charlie 9 Victor Kilo Victor. That will take you to our Qso-Vlog page, and on that page we're currently running about 870 recorded Qsos. But you'll be looking for one specifically called My Group Aircheck 122719. 122719. Roger?
Have it written down because faded ink on paper is better than my memory.
Absolutely. Yeah, and so you'll be able to check your, when you checked in, and then as we made a little modifications, and think about the warmness of it as it stands, But obviously, and I think that will translate into a very good situation when you're contesting too, because you have a nice EQ range there. Your top end is very articulated, so that's the main thing about getting through a pileup is that they be able to hear what you're saying. And also, when you have a ton of noise on your head and you're actually 1 dB below somebody's noise level, if your audio is articulated enough, they can copy what you're saying, even though the noise level is hotter than your signal.
Jim, thank you for that advice, and I have found that to be true, especially on pileups. I'm not running an amplifier, although this radio can run 200 watts out of the box. I'm probably on peaks at about 150 watts. So, Jim, thanks a lot. KC9VKV, AB9GK saying 73s to you, and really appreciate what you're doing.
Roger, Roger. Thank you, sir. Have a great weekend. Threes. This is KC9VKV and the Friday afternoon Qso-Vlog network. If you've got a radio you want to check out, give us a shout.